Hello and welcome to Plants to Plants Cannabis Processing Talks by SciPhy Systems. I'm Emmett McGregor, CEO of SciPhy Systems and your host. We're thrilled today to have Alex Rogers, CEO and executive producer of the International Cannabis Business Conference, the foremost set of international conferences for doing real business deals between the EU and all around the world. Right now featuring conferences in Berlin, in Spain and beyond, really the heart of cannabis business in Europe. And in fact, this year in Berlin, you can see our Director of Sales and Business Development, Steve Furr, on stage for his talk, The Science of Cannabis Extraction. I'll also be there to meet, greet, and do deals on the floor at the conference. This is April 29th to 30th at ICBC Berlin. You can check our booth out at booth 354. Look forward to seeing you all there if you can make it. Otherwise, really looking forward to digging into what the European business landscape looks like right now. And Alex, so glad to have you on. Is there any, as we start off, anywhere you'd like to direct our viewers to find more information about ICBC?
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Emmett. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. And looking forward to seeing you in Berlin for sure. Folks want to get tickets or just check out the website or whatever. It's internationalcbc.com, international Charlie Bravo Charlie.com. And yeah, it's tickets go up on April 2nd. So if you want to save a couple $100, just get your tickets before then. So that's where you can find us.
Awesome. Well, let's get into a little bit of the background. I mean, you've really built up an amazing event here. It's got really high quality content. It really is the place to go for cannabis businesses in Europe that are actually doing real business. We all know Cannabis has been around for a long time, but that's really marketing to the more the home growers and that the legacy market folks swapping genetics and all that. But to do real business development in these legal markets, medical markets, ICBC has been the place to go. So how did you start in your career in cannabis? How did you get interested? And then how did you come to where you are today, building out the premium European cannabis conference?
Right on. So how much time do we have, Evan? No, it's yeah, bro, man. I was 1992. I moved to Santa Cruz from Minneapolis. I was fresh off the boat, different worlds. And I was a city kid from Minneapolis. I moved to Santa Cruz, all these hippies and shit. It was really different, real wild, real interesting. They had this cannabis that was green and had no seeds, and I found that very fascinating because I grew up in the Midwest in the 70s and 80s. And so in 1993, I met Jack Hare in Santa Cruz, and I started working for Jack, and he hired me to be his Northern California coordinator for his California Hemp Initiative. And through that, through Jack, then I met Cypress. I worked with Cypress Hill, and then I worked with and then I moved up to San Francisco, worked with Debbie Goldsberry, Ed Rosenthal, Dale Geringer from California Normal, Chris Conrad, Mickey Norris, Dennis Perrone, the godfather of medical marijuana. So I was fortunate, Etienne Fontaine, Cannabis Action Network, Berkeley Patients Group. I just was fortunate to work with all these amazing, like what we would say now, old school cannabis activists. And I liked to smoke weed, and it helped me when I was a kid. It helped me with a disease I was diagnosed with, and so and then I let my hair grow long and dreadlocks, and I was just out there on the street banging for signatures, telling everyone to legalize weed, and everyone would kind of snicker, even in the Bay Area, a lot of times. But then come Prop 212. And 1996, and then they legalized medical cannabis. I had already moved off to Europe by that time, but I was there pre to 212 campaign, and I actually remember being in the room with Jack Hare and Dennis Perrone as they were arguing, should we do medical or should we do legalization? And the clear answer was medical at the time for various different reasons, but But yeah, that's how I got my start in cannabis, and it's been a long road to that point. But I was fortunate to have that. What would you say, cannabis pedigree, if you will?
Absolutely, yeah, really in there with the OGs of the movement and seeing it at the very roots. That's amazing.
It was bananas, bro.
Yeah. So what? How'd you end up going off to Europe? I mean, what? You know, did you stay in touch with the scene through those years of the late '90s into the 2000s?
I did. I fucked off into Europe in 1998, or I went to Oregon, then I went to Europe, and then Jack called me in a couple times to do some things. Like in Oregon, there was a thing, the referendum, as we called it, which an ounce had been decriminalized for a long time, and then in Oregon since like '72 or one, and then the governor a Democrat governor actually wanted to reverse that. And so we went up and we got a referendum on the ballot to take it to the people's vote if they wanted to reverse it, and they did. So I think that was like 98 or something like that. So I guess that's right when I went to Europe. But then I actually did just fuck off to Europe, and then I ended up running the High Time Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam, right? So for 5-6 years, I ran the Melkweg, the concert house there. I was hired by Debbie Goldsberry to do that. Who was hired by Mike Esterson at the time from 420 Tours, who were the people that bought the rights to have the show, the High Times Cannabis Cup. That's how it went. And but I had a lot of real power back in the day, because the Americans didn't know how to communicate with the Dutch, and the Dutch didn't know how to communicate with the Americans. And I'm not talking language either, because everybody spoke perfect English, right? And so I came in and I was kind of like I don't know, the damage control, I guess you could say, kind of the story of my life. I mean, and then I ended up going to prison in Germany eventually, right? And Austria, I went to prison, a few different prisons in Austria and Germany, and then when I got out, that's when my life really changed. So I was a wild cannabis activist, just a civil libertarian in general / anarchist. You know, I don't know what type of labels you want to throw on there, but freedom, personal liberty, kind of age of enlightenment 2.0 type shit, right? And I had the luxury and the ability to go travel around and just see a lot of different things. And I was full of piss and vinegar, and I was a young, wild child. And, you know, I got myself into trouble here and there, obviously, you know, and eventually I got myself in enough trouble that I was like, you know, my line is, my sister went to Princeton and I went to prison, right? Mm-hmm. So that just kind of, that's, you know, that infers that I come from a nice upper middle class family, you know, and I was out there just wilding, right? Straight wilding, which, I mean, when I look back on the time, I look quite fondly on the times, but when I think of me developing as a human, I needed to go through this process. And one of the reasons I did the ICBC Berlin, right, I did have a vision or a feeling or whatever you want to call it, that it was going to be the spot, and I was going to get in early, and I was going to be well positioned when it popped. But one of the reasons I feel that I almost willed it into existence, because it's so poetic, that when I got out of German prison, I thought, you know what, one day I'm going to come back to Germany and be an upstanding citizen, right? Because I was selling pot, you know, that's why I went to jail. And, you know, I could have been doing something else. So I wasn't doing anything morally reprehensible, but I literally could have been doing something better with my life. There's no question about that. And that's not disparaging pot dealers. That's just was me at that time, right? That's just the reality of the situation, right? So I was like, fuck it, I better go get my shit together. So I actually went back to the States. I graduated magna cum laude political science. I started one of the dopest medical marijuana clinics in the States, one of the biggest in Oregon. I was the first person to advertise on network television. Basically, after going to prison and just having that horrible experience, I was like, I got so low. I was just so high when I got out. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to do my parents proud. I'm going to be a fucking good human. I'm not like Hinduism, you know, like Shiva and Brahma or Vishnu, preservation and destruction, right? We're either in one of those states, right? And so I was too much in the destructive state, and I wanted to bring my life into the preservation state. So I started rebuilding my karma and doing all these good things for myself and my family and my community. And then all of a sudden I was like, not all of a sudden, always in the back of my mind, I was like, fuck, you know what? I'm going to fucking go back to fucking Germany. I'm going to legalize fucking weed. And I'm going to fucking do this. And I'm going to be the fucking center of everything and create something amazing. And lo and behold, thoughts are things, bro. I mean, granted, I worked my ass off. It was perilous. Don't get me wrong. We know how it is starting any business. But that's in the quickest nutshell as possible. That's the story.
Wow, what a saga, a whole lifetime building up to this. Hoping to see legalization moving in the EU and coming back. That's amazing business background as well in the States, Oregon, medical. So I want to ask a little bit about what you see in Europe now. I mean, you saw every generation of what happened in the US around legalization and deeply involved on the medical clinic side here. So what do you think the prevailing model in the EU is going to be? Is it going to sort of narrow in towards one single model, or is it going to be more like state by state in the US, where we saw a lot of different approaches at the start, and even to this day, different legal frameworks coming online?
Yeah, great question. So yes. Europe is going to be patchwork. It's patchwork right now. There is a federal state of the EU. They're not so conducive to full-on legalization, which actually could be argued to almost be a good thing when you look at how this system works and you try to go deep and not be reductive and try to find the nuances and find the metaphysics of what the reality of this policy is actually what's it going to actually eventuate from it, right? So the model in Europe is the German medical model, right? Now, we have pilot projects, we have the social model, right? And we have pilot projects. When we're talking about commercial models, it's the medical market in Germany that is running the whole, that's, the market driver for Europe. And to be honest, that's a de facto legalization model happening right now. So just like we had seen in so many states, this de facto medical model under these respective jurisdictions, we see that now, like California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, and then we saw when it legalized in those states that sometimes that de facto model might have been better. We saw, because it was, the irony is that it was over-regulated when it was recreational, but under-regulated when it was medical, right? And so what happened in Germany was basically where we're at now is cannabis is off the narcotics list. It all has to go through pharmacies, which sounds clinical and is clinical enough, but there's all these de facto basically, some of them are de facto dispensaries, right? And you can get lemon kush, and you can get your train wrecks, or your whatever, your strawberry cost, whatever you need, your diesels, whatever, it's all there. You can even have brands in the pharmacies, right? And so, with each label on it of what it is, and they are de facto dispensaries, and the prices are very low. So the prices and this is why the model is so sweet, because the prices and the quality are better than the street. You dig what I'm saying? Rarely is that the case. Like, and if you're a superhead, like the superheads are hearing this and they're like, nah, bro, I get my shit for whatever, right? Okay, I dig it, right? If you're a superhead, you just got the straight up, super blink, then great. There's some superheads out there, but straight up, you get it for like $5 a gram in the pharmacy for some dope chronic, and you really have this. So that's a real functional model. And when we're talking about black market, it reduces the black market entirely. So herein lies the model in Europe that needs to be spread right now, because the EU, the overlords, their corporate, or they're basically their federal corporate overlords, will not allow that. You know, it's not that they won't allow it, it's that you'll get sued subsequent to doing something, and there'll be punitive measures, right? The UN, they can't be punitive, right? Unless it's just some fucking crazy war or some shit, but not like procedurally or administratively, right? But the EU can, right? And so that's the problem. So now what the EU allows and what the tenet or the dictate is anything can be done under medical or research auspices, right? So all this stuff is done under medical or research auspices, and then there's a human rights aspect to just a decrim thing also. But there's the model. Now, what will the other countries do? What are they doing? Now, this is very interesting because nobody else is really doing shit. Sorry, but compared to Germany, nobody's really doing shit compared to Germany. Right?
Well, yeah. So this might be what you're saying here is, you know, it's a little bit surprising to me. I try and stay, you know, on top of what's happening internationally, but I've always viewed the German model as being a little bit more restrictive, and that the patient counts were initially seemed like they were going to be kept very low. But you're making it sound more like, you know, California model where access is actually fairly opened up. So can you dig in a little bit more detail as far as like what's the volume opportunity in Germany, and do you think that that is also apparent in some of these other markets like you know, what's up with Spain and Slovenia?
Yep. Okay. So yeah, dope, good stuff. So yeah, the market is basically okay. So when the law passed, it was like wah. They didn't really do legalization. People didn't understand. This is what I'm trying to tell folks. They went from 200,000 patients April 1st to they might have 800,000 patients now. They went from having 1,000 more percentage in imports, going up 1,000%, right? They only have 3 domestic producers there now. Now there's more coming, but they can only produce maybe, I don't know, 5%. I don't know that exact fact, but it's some, you know, 5. I don't know. They'll probably say more. It's actually probably less. I'm not sure.
And just to comment there, I mean,
I don't think it's 5% even. Actually.
Part of that is the licensing structure in Germany, as I understand it, to get a grow in place and you know, even distribution through there is very onerous. It's very expensive to get a grow operation up.
For sure, it
really is an import market, so it's relying on international export into the German market for a majority of the volume, right?
I would say that's a very astute assessment of what's going on, indeed. And so on the patient side, you can literally, I mean, it's a little wild west. And so I don't even know how, I'm a libertarian psychopath, right? But even it's so wild west, we do have to regulate our industry in a way not to then hurt it otherwise, right? We have to have some type of little compromise. So right now it's so crazy. There's some platforms that you don't even see a doctor. You fill out a form and you can have it delivered to your house within 2 hours. So that's how open it is. And then, but even if you have to see a doctor for 5 minutes, the cost is not prohibitive at all. You see a doctor, it's all telemedicine, right? So nobody's going to the doctor's office. It's all telemedicine, and then you can get it all delivered, or go down to your local pharmacy or have it delivered, or go to your local more dispensary centric pharmacy to get your cannabis, and they're like dispensaries. So it's as open right now. Cannabis came off the narcotics list April 1st. So where did that happen? That didn't happen in California, did it? That didn't happen in any state in America, as far as I'm almost positive, right? So they done did take cannabis off. They done did took cannabis off the narcotic list. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it's almost more like by taking it in the medical system, and then they treat it almost like an over-the-counter medication, effectively, where it's no longer in their scheduled system. It's no longer a narcotic, so it's being handled like a commercial good, but it's still regulated in terms of the manufacture and distribution. So again, more like an over-the-counter medicine.
You still need a prescription for it, right? But that prescription, doctors aren't under the same amount of scrutiny to give that prescription as they would be if it was a narcotic. So I think like it's like fucking aspirin almost, I think, because aspirin in Germany, I think you need a prescription for aspirin in Germany, actually. So I think it's on the same level as that. So that's a way to put it into perspective. And it's a great thing because it's creating a safe market access for folks, right? And whilst taking it off the black market, right? So it might be done under certain auspices, but the byproduct of everything is you're having just safer, more just intelligent public policy implemented.
Wow. So, and this really puts into perspective that there is a commercial opportunity here. They're growing volume, and we were talking about, 8x on the potential customer list in terms of the number of prescriptions out there, 1,000% increase in imports. Those are big numbers. We don't know where the plateau is going to be there yet. It seems like there's a lot of growth still on the table just for Germany. But when we look at a more, meta perspective of the whole country, I mean, do you think that, or not just the country, but the whole EU and all of the other states in the EU, do you think now is the right time for cannabis businesses to be going out and actively pursuing bringing business into the EU? What's the landscape look like for other emerging markets? Is Germany, like you said, Germany is the model, but is Germany the market at this point?
Germany is the market, right? So here's the deal. I mean, Switzerland's the market too. Holland's there's markets on different levels, but when it comes to the illicit market, Germany's the market. However, each respective jurisdiction or country, right, in Europe has its own je ne sais quoi. So Spain has its illicit market going on. It's underground grow, seeds, genetics, all that stuff. But it also has, you can export though from Spain. Portugal has a great export market going on, right? So a lot of companies are in Portugal with their grows with the idea to export their cannabis into Germany, but into Australia too. And there's other into the Czech Republic, into Poland. Poland is coming on strong too. Poland has probably the second biggest medical program in the continent, and get ready because it's about to pop, right, under its own medical thing. Now there won't be uniformity, right? There will not be uniformity. Every single country is going to be different. The country that's going to so each respective country will have their own thing, for better or for worse, honestly. You know what I'm saying? Because people talk about harmonization, how that can be a good thing, but that also can create quicker consolidation, right? And so I'm actually okay with this patchwork of sorts, as long as each jurisdiction has, a working model, whatever that working model might be. But you're not going to see anyone. The closest is going to be Slovenia is probably going to be the next country to do what Germany did, and it's going to be the closest model. So that's just so everybody knows, right? Like, it's kind of a lot of people don't think it's the Czech Republic. Like the Czech Republic, they've been talking about doing this, that, and everything. So much bureaucracy, or whatever you want to call it, cultural mores of how public policy and things are implemented or whatever, and then the redheaded stepchild of cannabis thrown into the mix, and then you have just, we're going to do this little thing, but then this is not, and it's just like nothing's working, right? So Dutch pilot project model, it's just like, come on, everybody, let's get going. Switzerland is probably and they're not part of the EU, they're part of the Schengen, but they're probably after Germany, and then what Slovenia is likely about to do. But other than that, the model is Switzerland. They're the only ones. And of course, lest we not forget Great Britain. They're on too, but it's all just really slow and cumbersome. And so Switzerland, they can get shit done when they want to get shit done, right?
Yeah, because they don't have the EU bureaucracy. I mean, as I understand it, they have a somewhat similar model to Germany with pharmacy distribution of cannabis.
Wait,
and then
it's bananas. So I actually went. We're about to put out a video of me going to I saw a doctor online. I went and picked up my prescription, and it's going to be a sweet video out, and what we did in Zurich. And it was just like such a cool experience for me. Now, Switzerland's wide up. Switzerland's dope. Switzerland is dope. Weed is freed up in Switzerland. There's just some countries where it's freed up, and you just know that it's only a matter of time before they, like Switzerland, like Slovenia, even like Czech Republic, you know, it's like it's still only a matter of time for them also. But Switzerland, it's just they're not, you don't feel policed for cannabis in Switzerland or Slovenia. And even though it's technically kind of illegal, maybe for possession, you know, possession. And so these are where that's Switzerland, that's probably the Slovenia, those are probably the next big ones. But like I said, like Denmark is exporting. So England's got big pharmaceutical companies and investment going on, right? So all these jurisdictions, there's something going on with cannabis, right? It's just what is going on. And so there's a ton of things going on in a lot of different jurisdictions, but like even Macedonia or whatever, right? It's not legal there, but they have a whole growth thing. Greece is coming on actually with their medical, and they're getting their domestic producers. I know a lot of domestic producers in Greece ready to go into the Greek medical. So it's all coming on. It's all going to be a little different. But all the big markets are going to be under this under medical. That's how the market's going to roll, and then the pilot projects will come in eventually after the medical.
Right. And so from an investor perspective, they're looking at this, it seems very fragmented. It's hard to understand in some instances because you have all of these markets where it's illegal. There's no consumer outlet for the product, but there's building up the industry for production and even in some cases processing it and product manufacturing. But then those are 100% going to export. So in your mind, is it, as investors are coming in, what are you seeing from investor sentiment? Is there enough intelligibility in the marketplace to really be encouraging people to put money into these production facilities? Where's most of the investor money going? Because if you can't cultivate or produce products easily in Germany, but that's where the consumer market is, and then you have all these other countries coming online for export, like what's your advice, or what are you seeing and hearing from people that are trying to deploy money out there?
Yeah, well, I just started the Tallman House about 8 months ago, and we're the biggest private investor group for cannabis in Europe. Our next event, well, we just were in Zurich a few weeks ago at the Dolder Grand. We'll be at the Adlon the day before the ICBC, April 28th. Little plug, shout out to Tallman House. It's blowing up because here's the deal. The timing's right now. We had the 219 fiasco, and now everything starts to come online again, European-wise, right? And even a little bit American-wise, even though it's just so sad that America's not a little further, U.S. is not a little further along there. But here's the deal. Yeah, Germany's supplying all the markets right now. People can't sell enough into Germany. It's exponentially growing right now. I don't know where the diminishing rate of returns is, 2-3 years or something. That curve will start to flatten out. 2 years, I'm not sure, right? But right now, that's sucker going straight up, right? And that is fueling a big part of the European market, just the German market. You could think of it as Canada. Think how big the business got under medical just in Canada, and Canada is half the size of Germany, right? So you're thinking about two Canadas going medical with even a more robust medical program. So for investor sentiment is back. And what's cool is all this stuff is uniformly federalized. So these are federal laws, So there's no the EU is still the EU. It still doesn't have the power the United States federal government has, right? So Germany has its federal law. And so if you're operating under this, so the guidelines are clear, the money's there, the investors are there. And they're investing in all types of things that have to do, whether it's not, everyone's always a little shaky to do the grows, but they're investing in grows, okay? We're placing something right now into a grow, based in France, actually, of all places. So think about that. France doesn't have shit going on. You don't have to. You got to work the components that are all happening in Europe. And so every place has these legal business, and then you mix it all together and work out how everything's gonna get transported or whatever. But then we also have tech plays, right? We actually just help fund a company in our group that is a tolling technology, right? A more irie way to toll the herb rather than doing it with radiation. You know what I'm saying? So but that's all based on the German medical market, because that tolling is getting done to go into the EU. I don't want to discount these other markets, but comparatively speaking, what I'm saying is inarguable. Germany is that leader, and that is why, and investors are loving it, and everybody's really excited. And so now the timing is right. It's just starting, albeit, but everything's on a really good trajectory. This is those 1 in a lifetime, 2 in a lifetime, 3 in a lifetime, 4 if you're lucky type of things that you see. And not being hyperbolic either, you can just look at the stats, go and look them up yourself. It's everything's is hyperbolic in terms of the economics of the situation.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's great to hear that the investors are really starting to actually deploy capital and put it on the ground and put it in. What you said there about doing a project in France is super interesting. Would you say then that most of the highest population or most influential countries in the EU right now have some sort of regulation allowing for legal cannabis business of some kind, whether or not they have a way to get the product to consumers, that export business is effectively established? If you're saying that grow is happening in France, that would mean that all of the major markets at this point have something.
Well, no, the grow's actually happening in Portugal.
Oh, in Portugal.
For the French company, right?
Oh, a French company investing into.
Yeah, but like Italy's coming on. Italy medical system is coming on right now also. So here's another market that I forgot to mention. But this is nothing's happened. I don't think, well, I'm not going to say nothing. There's always something happening somewhere, right?
Well, France has had an interesting hemp market for a long while. So it's always been that hope that might transfer into something cannabis, but they seem like the kind of the stick in the mud of the EU a little bit.
100%. It's a funky little place where you talk about bureaucracy, right? But the irony is I think I lived in France for a while, and they smoke a lot of weed in France. There's just no question. They got to be one of the highest per capita weed smoking nations in the world. You know what I'm saying? So eventually it'll happen. And the health minister of France just said a couple of weeks ago that he's down for medical cannabis. So what we're seeing is crazy movement. Everything's going to fall super soon. There's a couple jurisdictions that won't, but when every jurisdiction falls, they're going to do it in their own way. But medical in Europe, this de facto medical system will rule the day.
All right. Well, just a few last thoughts, and then we can wrap. I mean, I think that when you're putting on these events in Europe, the ICBC events and also Tolman House events, what's the biggest message you're sending out to people to get businesses interested, and how much are you seeing year-on-year change in terms of the way that companies coming from outside the EU and even inside the EU are approaching the business?
Yeah, so the main market drivers, just like we're talking about, is the medical market in Germany. It's a massive thing. We're going to be twice the size this year. We're already by far the biggest B2B cannabis event in the Eastern Hemisphere. We're going to be twice the size as we were last year. That being said, there's a lot of other things that happen in Germany that can't and shan't be discounted, like seeds and clones are now legal, right? So we have social clubs, cultivation societies, and there's, I think, maybe now a couple hundred licenses coming from these, right? You also have pilot projects. So you have all these things, and now everybody, and you have this decrim thing in Germany, lest we not forget, where you can smoke anywhere. You can grow at your house, 3 plants per person, not per household. You have 25 grams on you on the street. People are smoking. I went outside my 5-star hotel in Munich the other day, smoked a joint, but I was just like, just fucking pinch me, right? It's just a madness. So here now, this is a very fascinating thing, I think, because everyone thought, oh, Germany legalized, how ironic, because they don't have the cannabis culture that like Spain or Amsterdam or America or Canada, whatever, right? Supposedly. but they do. They're just all on the sleeper cells are now being wakened up. Because when I lived in Germany 25 years ago, I'd be like, yo, I smoke weed, y'all smoke weed? Who wants to smoke some weed? They'd be like, no, Alex, only on various special occasions would we ever do anything like that. And I realized very quickly that that was code for, you got a joint? Hell yeah, I smoke weed. You get what I'm saying? Culturally, they just couldn't, you can't admit that shit because it's so stigmatized in Germany still that you're, du bist ein Faulsache, basically is what they say in German. You're a lazy thing, right? You're just a lazy thing. And that's really, it's, you know, in America, we've broken through so much of that it's hard to think about it, right? It's like, you know, it's like if you're queer in America, and then you go to some place that's not queer friendly, you're like, oh shit, fuck, not queer friendly, you know? It's like, it's the same thing for weed heads, you know? It's like, oh my God, you know, I got used to this, you know? So anyway, there's
Well, just like around the world, you know, in Germany, the hip hop culture there, very strong, holding it down. I mean, and there's always been these cultural niches where it's been much more explicit, and you know, it's an underground movement.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the hip hop aspect of it because that's true. That's a really good point, actually, Emmett. That I was surprised when I moved over to Germany, and then I started seeing all these like dope ass hip hop crews coming up doing like kind of 90s native tongue East Coast stuff, but German style. And I was like, oh, wow, that's so shocking, you know, like being in Germany. So the sleeper cells have awoken. And now you're seeing this cannabis culture thing happen in Germany that it didn't happen before because it's not as stigmatized, it's more tolerated, and da-da-dee-da-da-dee-da. So here we go. Lest we not forget, you talk about all these other market drivers, whether they're adjacent or ancillary or you know, all the homegrown stuff, whatever. It's all there right now. And you have a de facto legalization system under medical.
Amazing. So really, California, late 90s California, West Coast, it's happening, it's bubbling up. The interest is there, the hype is there, but the big thing is export markets are the biggest difference we're seeing across the board. So not only getting involved on the ground, help deploying business within the EU, but looking at other markets like Canada, looking even South Africa. You know, Australia is more of an importer than an exporter, but the focus on the EU right now, as that consumer growth goes and goes and goes, we're getting more and more patients on the ground in Germany. It's super exciting to see how this market's going to blossom.
Canada must be selling 40 tons, 20 tons a quarter now up into Germany. That's how bananas it is.
Amazing, amazing. Wow.
Yeah. All right, Emmett. I'll see you soon, brother, huh?
Absolutely. Well, yes. So come and see us both at ICBC in Berlin on April 29th through the 30th.
DJ Muggs at Cypress Hill spinning the after party. So.
All right. Yes, loved it. And there we go. The late 90s vibe, bringing it to Germany. Man, I've seen them a couple times. Always the most hype shows. Just such incredible energy. So can't wait for that. You can find ICBC at www.internationalcbc.com, at internationalcbc on Instagram. Of course, find SciPhy Systems at SciPhy Systems on all social media, at SciPhy Systems, and SciPhySystems.com. Reach out to us about any extraction equipment needs you might have. Come out to Berlin, see our talk, and really, now's the time. EU, it's hot. It's time to get involved. Even if you're in the US, find a way. Let's make plans. Let's get out there and grow the culture.
International.
Alex, thank you so much for coming out. And any last things you want to plug for our viewers that they should be tuning into?
No, man, just like you said, come through. I think people will be pleasantly surprised how robust and sophisticated our European market is over here.
It gets better every year.
It
really
does.
Can't wait to see what it's like on the ground there in Germany this year.
Indeed, brother. Indeed. All right. Big it up, Emmett. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you too, Alex. Thanks. And join us again on Plants to Plants. Everyone watching, subscribe on YouTube, give us the thumbs up, hit the bell. We have a new episode coming up shortly, focused on vape carts and all-in-one vape technology. We'll have a panel with multiple experts from the field. So if you're in the industry and you're looking at what's next, we've seen a ton of change in that space over the past year. So tune in to our next episode. Thanks again for joining in.